Welcome back to Breakfast Live. We, of course, have now crossed over to the chat room where we bring you our regular health segment from the chat room. And today we are joined by Cecellia Saidi, who is, of course, a nutritionist who actually owns her own, what can we call it again?
A wellness center.
A wellness center. Though that's the name. That's the one. She owns her own wellness center where she can offer you all these kind of things she talks about on the program directly from this wellness center. But today, Cecellia is here to talk about a condition, or shall we say a disease, which you've probably heard about a lot. You might know somebody, maybe more than likely an uncle, a husband, a partner who suffers from it. We're going to talk about gout today, which I'm quite excited about because it's something you hear a lot about, but we don't really talk about enough, I think. What is gout? Let's start there.
So, gout is a form of arthritis.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So it's actually a form of arthritis?
Yeah, so arthritis is a disease of the joints.
Yes.
Stiffness and pain of the joints.
Yeah.
So it's a form of arthritis, and mostly it affects the lower extremities.
Mm-hmm.
But nonetheless, it can affect any other joints.
Right.
So what causes gout is what we call after digestion of high purine foods.
Uh-huh.
So we're talking about foods that have purines like some vegetables have high purines.
Mm-hmm.
And
What are purines, first of all?
Purines are compounds that are found in protein foods.
Okay,
Yeah.
right. Okay.
So after breakdown, after
Mm-hmm.
digestion of such foods, you find that the body is going to accumulate, end product is going to be uric acid.
right.
So the accumulation of uric acid will then settle in the joints and then crystallize, they form crystals. And then that's what...
on the joint.
On the joint.
Wow, okay.
So that's gout in simple terms.
Right.
Yeah.
So who does gout primarily affect? Who has more of a predisposition to develop gout?
So, the likely people to develop gout are men.
Right. Why is that?
So
Let's clear the air. Why are men more likely to develop gout?
So men, obviously, from a general perspective, men do not take care of their bodies. They don't.
I'm sure they're going to be very upset about hearing about that. We have generalized a bit there. Most of them, perhaps, are not as concerned as we are.
They're not.
Should we put it that way?
They're not.
To be a bit PC.
That's why sometimes you find the debate of life expectancy between a wife and a husband. You find
Yes.
the wife will live longer. So
Okay.
maybe because women were sort of scared about anything, a slight headache, we ran to the clinic.
Yeah.
So men, coming back to gout, men are more likely to develop gout, of which they do. Some of it is also the behaviors, lifestyle.
Okay.
So we talk of a guy that frequents a drinking place. Like most of the times you find a guy from work just goes to a drinking place and they go home at 9. What do they eat? Red meat.
Okay.
Braai.
Yes.
Yeah, so you find that the taking the alcohol which is also high in purines.
I was going to say, what is the link between alcohol and gout? So it's the purines
It's
again.
the purines.
Okay.
So I've talked about vegetables and
Yes.
protein foods, but alcohol, all types, is also high in purines.
Right.
So one is already at a risk by taking alcohol alone. But furthermore, they're also eating different meats, dry, boiled. So the meat that is very high in purines are organ meat, red meat in general, seafood like fish, prawns, and other seafood products. And
Those are also high risk.
they're also high in purines.
What about most Malawian men will tell you they eat jambo. Is that also high in purines?
Well, not necessarily high, like on the scale of the other seafoods. But then, a fish is also high in purines.
Okay.
But tilapia, like in our case, cannot rank high.
Okay.
But fish in general, that's why it's also important to calculate when somebody has gout or is prone to gout, to calculate how much protein they're taking. Because there's a recommendation that you have to take in an average of 100 grams in a day.
Okay.
So that's very little meat.
That's all you should eat in a day. Wow.
In a day when you have gout.
Oh, when you have gout.
Exactly.
Okay. Right. What about if you don't have gout?
Well, if you don't
You're
have
healthy.
gout, we always say in your portion, in your plate, the biggest portion should be vegetables or a salad. So the carbohydrate and protein should be smaller portions.
Yeah.
Because if we go to calculations, a gram of carbohydrate and a gram of protein will give you the same amount of kilocalories.
Right.
When you're talking about weight.
Okay.
Yeah, but in terms of being healthy, meat should also be a small portion of what you're eating.
Absolutely. Okay.
Exactly.
So there's a lot of things there. So but I'm assuming we're still talking very large quantities here for somebody to actually end up with gout? Because look, we all eat meat, and a lot of us love meat. I love my meat, but it doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to develop gout. So I guess the individuals in question you're talking about must be consuming a very large quantity, right? Or is it cumulative?
Cumulative, I would say so. Because large would mean, today I'm just eating a whole 1 kg of chicken or meat.
But it's the frequency, perhaps,
the frequency. But again, to go along with that is how we detox our bodies. Because you see, after the digestion, the waste products go through the kidneys, and then some through the urine to be passed out.
Right.
So if we're not taking in a lot of water, it means we're not flushing out our kidneys as well.
Right.
So what happens to the waste products, in this case uric acid? It's retained in the blood system.
Right.
Then it settles in the joints. After settling, that's when it solidifies to crystallize.
Okay.
If it's so much accumulative in the urinary tract, it forms kidney stones.
Okay. So which are also very painful, aren't they?
Exactly, and you have to go through surgery when you accumulate more. So we can say, well, there's so many don'ts that we can go through, but well, it's not practical.
Yeah.
So we can say, well, I'm not taking meat for a month, or I won't take meat.
Yeah.
But it's also how we also detox our bodies.
Okay.
So that's why we always recommend to say, in a day, on average, you should take 2 liters of water. At least. But that goes to how much you weigh. Some people that are over 80 or 80 kgs will have to take more than 2 liters of water. So it's not so much like the portion, accumulative, the lifestyle, and also how you're detoxing.
Okay, but I guess it's safe to say that the alcohol certainly doesn't help either, and maybe that's a big factor, isn't it? Because that is something that, like you've said, there are some people whose lifestyle effectively revolves around alcohol pretty much every day.
Every day.
Now that is, I suspect, a big factor in the development of gout, right?
Yeah, so you're on a double risk. You're taking alcohol and you're also eating a lot of meat.
Very regularly.
Yes.
Okay, so how does gout manifest? What are the symptoms?
So one would feel, would have a swelling in the joints.
Okay.
But before the swelling, one would feel stiffness in the joints.
Okay.
Well, stiffness, sometimes tenderness of the joint. So, but when somebody's having a gout attack, that's the flare. When the crystals have flared, that's when somebody says we'll have a gout attack. So that can take about 12 to 24 hours, and mostly it happens in the night.
Okay.
So there is pain. Somebody dark like me, you'd still see the joint area would be red or purple in color. So it's so painful. And also one would find if it's on the toe or on the ankle, would have difficulties in walking.
Okay. So which joints are usually affected?
So the one that's more prone is the big toe.
The big toe?
Yeah, the big toe.
That's interesting. Why is that?
Well,
is there no real explanation?
Yeah, maybe it will be more medical.
Yeah.
Yeah, but from my point as a nutritionist, well, as where the uric acid settles and all that, maybe we can go in details.
Okay.
But the big toe is the one that's mostly affected.
Wow.
Yeah, so you find men would be limping.
Yes, I've seen that on many occasions.
Yeah, but then elbows are also areas where uric acid settles.
Okay.
So any other joint, I should say.
Right. Now, how long? You said that it comes in waves. So the swelling comes and then it goes away, I guess.
Yes, after the flare can take 12 to 24 hours, and like I said, mostly night, because that's when the breakdown of purines is happening. So when it happens after, some people take medication. Yeah, some they'll just take a lot of water, but mostly it's medication because it's so painful. And after those hours, it goes down.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, so it comes and goes, until you get to a point where you get the crystals all completely liquidify and get rid of,
okay.
Which is a long process.
I was going to say, what is the prognosis once you've been diagnosed with gout? How long does it take to completely eradicate it from your system?
Well, time period would be difficult to estimate because these are things that are happening internally, and like crystals, just like salt crystals.
Yes.
And on the joint and between bones. So it's a process that happens gradually. So one would really recover from gout, but it would really take quite a long time. So can it take?
Does it take like years?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. So a combination of medication, prescribed medication, a good diet, and healthy lifestyle would do the trick.
Is it possible to prevent it if you notice the first onset? Is it possible to prevent any long-term gout?
Yes, yes. So
Okay.
it's not for people to wait until they have those symptoms that I talked about.
Okay.
So like you and I, the way we
Mhm.
are, you go
Mhm.
for a blood test to check your uric acid levels.
Right.
So if you're on borderline, you know, well, I have to reduce the level of meat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's always recommended that at least twice a year you have a check. Things like cholesterol, uric acid should be a routine twice a year. So
Gosh.
that's the only way you can prevent some things from materializing as conditions in the body.
When you talk about diet, so what sort of a diet would somebody who now has gout have to follow
So
if it's already quite advanced?
yeah, okay. Before I come to that, like the vegetables, because people think, well,
Yeah.
it's just the meat.
Yeah.
We have vegetables like asparagus,
Okay.
cauliflower,
Uh-huh.
green peas,
Right.
mushrooms. Those are high in purines.
Gosh.
So, well, somebody...
I love mushrooms.
I do also. But then you'll have to note what vegetables and what
Right.
meats to take. But red meat obviously has to get out of the diet.
Okay.
Organ meat like kidneys, liver, those again has to get out. So
Really?
you
So
eat a
somebody
lot
with
of
gout
white
shouldn't
meat.
eat liver, shouldn't eat
Kidneys, red meat.
beef, just ordinary red meat like beef.
Red meat, yeah, also has to be toned down.
So chicken then basically.
Chicken, fish, though fish in moderation was what we've discussed
Yeah.
already. Yeah, so there are other things like apples that have malic acid, the substance in the
Okay.
apples that helps in balancing up the uric acid levels.
Right.
We also have citric acid, like in the citrus fruits,
Right.
in lime juice. So
I hear some people with gout also can't eat tomatoes. Is that true?
well,
Because
tomatoes
they're
are
acidic?
so it's not only about when we talk about uric acid, people think, well, any other acid would not do, but the other acids are there to help
Okay.
to counter effect the uric acid. So like the citrus citric acid, malic acid in the apples. Yeah, there's certain foods that one has to take that will help to lower down the levels of uric acid.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So what kind of medication is available once you have gout to try and cure it? Is there something that you take to actually reduce the crystallization or to just reduce the
pain,
uric
the
acid
swelling.
altogether?
Yeah,
so
they
it's
are
pain relief
prescri-
more than anything.
Yes, prescribed medication that help in reducing the symptoms. Yeah, some Gout and also in diluting the crystals. But mostly what I would say is, well, prevention, yes. But if one already is diagnosed, then watching your diet, that you don't accumulate more.
Yeah.
And in the instance, you're flushing out the uric acid crystals that have already formed.
Right.
Yeah, and the detox part.
Okay.
'Cause that will
Lots
really-
of fluids, lots of water.
Lots of water. Yeah, when we say fluids, also there, because
Yes.
sugary drinks are also perpetuators of gout attacks.
Oh.
Yeah, so water.
Wow,
is
you
a
should have
fact-
mentioned that. I like
Okay.
sugary drinks.
Okay.
Really? Why is that?
So it's also it's a chemical combinations of the glucose
Okay.
and the processes that also result into accumulation of uric acid in the body.
Okay.
So you stay away from alcohol and sugary drinks.
Gosh. Okay. So
So much.
I think suffice to say, once you do actually have gout, you have a very limited diet.
Yes.
And you have to really restrict yourself, I guess, in a lot of ways.
A lot of ways.
Can it affect children?
Children, not likely. Yeah, not likely. But men at any age, so that would affect a male teenager. Yeah, because men are really prone to it. But women after menopause.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
Okay.
so as we're growing, you and I
Yes.
really have to have a
Oh,
critical
gosh.
eye to...
We have a lot to look forward to, don't we?
Exactly. So people say, well, gout is a disease of men, but no, it also
Yeah.
affects women.
So for women at that point, it's not really about diet then, is it?
After menopause? Like...
Is it still attributed to diet? Or is it more just hormonal
degeneration,
changes?
of the body and stuff. So
Okay.
it goes back to what we say, checking your uric acid levels and what you're eating.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's more advantageous when you don't have and you prevent, other than treating it.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, Cecilia, thank you so much for giving us all that very, very important information about gout. Hopefully, our viewers at home have actually picked up something and have learned something. And also, I hope we've kind of dispelled some myths about gout. and cleared the air on the causes and what to eat and what not to eat, the kind of lifestyle changes that you need to make as well or adopt in order to prevent it in the long term. So a big thank you to Cecellia Saidi for joining us today. She'll of course be back in a fortnight with another topic to discuss. But until then, Breakfast Live continues. We have more guests still to come.